Man United won, Young Boys won. Manchester United are through to the knockout stages of the Champions League, but we knew that already. And on a night when arguably the biggest story of the evening was, will Robbie Savage get to announce his own son coming onto the pitch? How much is there to say about that? What do you make of that game? I'm joined by Joe McGrath. I'm joined by Ange as well. Ange, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on that? Because it was a dead rubber. We knew that going in. Plenty of rotation. Only a draw. Any sort of positives to take from that game, or is it very much, job done and let's move on?
I feel like my expectations were maybe a little bit high, just because I thought there was going to be a lot of goals. I think that mixture of having players like Mata, Lingard, Greenwood, who do have, a hell of a lot more experience compared to some of the other players, I thought it would maybe be a little bit more of a nice balance, and I think it did expose the fact that these players clearly have not played together. But I think the positives of it, in that it was a great experience for a lot of young names that we got to see. This is the only kind of game, really, that you could kind of play this card of having these young players.
Yeah, these games don't come around very often, do they?
Exactly.
Especially for United in recent years.
And I think had you fielded a team with your Ronaldos and your Fernandes, etc., people would have been moaning and saying, oh, why not give young talent a go? This is a game where it doesn't matter if we win or lose, at least if you put some young talent on. That's what they've done. They didn't lose. They didn't completely and utterly embarrass themselves. We didn't lose the game. It was a draw at the end of the day, and I think it's a good experience for these young players. A good job interview for some players if they want, to be, in Ralph's teams in the future. I think those are the main positives to take away from it. Joe, you'd previously talked about Greenwood and, him getting a bit of game time and confidence. So, I think there was a lot of positives to take from it.
Yeah, what do you make of the game? Because it wasn't a classic by any means, was it? We saw a couple of decent goals, but the second half was particularly sort of slow. United, you could tell that was a rotated team.
Yeah, the point that I wanted to bring up, that I brought up in the watch-along, was that this is probably Ralph's game of least importance, because he's through in the Champions League. Every game now for him will be about winning. In the Premier League, he's got to win every single game to get a respectable position at the end of the season. The FA Cup, he'll want to get his hands on a trophy, and the Champions League will come up against big teams. So to see what he's got in his armoury, he needed this game to feel players and see how they could fit in certain positions. I honestly think, looking at it now, there's not much he'll take away from this game. I don't think anyone stood up and made themselves known, apart from Greenwood's amazing finish, so I will give him that. Maybe Greenwood will get into the manager's ear. But apart from that, Luke Shaw and Wan-Bissaka weren't great. They gave away balls. They weren't in positions where I thought they should be a lot of the time. Matic, if we thought he was going to be the new centre-back, looked quite shaky. There's moments where the ball just got booted
bouncing above him.
It was a bit crazy.
You have to play it a bit safer than that when you're at centre-back, don't you?
Yeah, Van der Beek again was a bit slow in the midfield and not exactly setting it alight as we thought he would be. So I think he tried it because he needed to see what he's got. I don't think he will be coming away going, actually, this changes my first team 11 now. I think he'll know what he's got to work with. Which will be in the next Premier League game this weekend.
Yeah, it wasn't a classic by any means, was it? I think it was good to see the debuts that we saw. I think Champions League debuts there was a few in there, wasn't there? But
3, I think.
But I think in terms of first team debuts, I think Zidane Iqbal and
Savage.
Charlie Savage as well were the two debutants. Mengi making his Champions League debut, I think. So that was good from that perspective, but again, it was such a changed team and such a rotated team that what could we really expect? Like, how often do you see a full 11 change? And this was a genuine, as weak, not weak, but as rotated an 11 as I've ever seen at United. The whole 11 was completely different to last week, and the entire bench was completely different to last week. It doesn't get more rotated than that. It was always going to be difficult for a cohesive, strong, well-drilled performance, because not only do these players have they never played with each other, most of them don't play very often. So this was a lot of players that aren't even used to playing week in, week out, let alone have any sort of links and partnerships in that team. So I'm not surprised that we saw things unfold the way they did. I thought United probably should have won the game on the balance of things. I thought we had some good chances. Even in the second half, Elanga has that great one-on-one chance with the goalkeeper that he probably should have scored. Juan Mata has a decent chance, a very good chance that he might well have scored as well. just seen a picture of Wan-Bissaka going off the pitch on a stretcher there.
It's not good because he ran into the barriers.
Yeah, he looks like he's maybe holding his arm, but presumably he wouldn't be stretching off if he hurt his arm.
One of those crazy ones, because you really don't know what you're going to
That was the very last second of the game he put a cross in. So we're not entirely sure what's going on there. If we hear anything, we'll let you know, of course. But and were you expecting anything different, or are you kind of just happy the game's out the way? I mean, maybe Wan-Bissaka's injured, so that's a negative. But do you think, are you at all annoyed or bothered that we only drew 1-1? Or are you happy with the result, fine with the result?
I'm fine with the result because I don't think it was a completely embarrassing display. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there were some moments where you were like, that was a mistake, that wasn't good, that didn't look great, but it wasn't a constant. There were chances. It wasn't constantly clutching your head like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. So in that sense, I'm not as bothered. I think it would have been nice to have finished it off with a win. But I think the fact that it was a draw for me is why I'm not as bothered. I think had it have been a loss, I would have questioned it a little bit more for, the momentum and stuff like that. But I think on the whole, I'm pretty, I'm feeling all right about it. I think it could have been a lot worse because when you're fielding a team like that with so many young players, whilst they're all, clearly very competent and very good at the job, sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes it can be an absolute mess. And so from that perspective, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and let's not forget, our first team lost to these 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. I know that was after a red card, but it's not as though, like you said, you bring all these youngsters on, as good as they are. This is still a Champions League match with a team that is used to winning a lot of games in their division. Yeah, are you bothered by the results at all? I think most of the comments seem to be it is what it is, and it's not the end of the world, but. Is part of you thinking, we should have won that?
I think part of me is if it's a nothing game, it kind of made sense to do what he did here in terms of what the first team probably did tonight was rest up or, prepare for what would be a very hectic winter period. There's a lot of talk about the winter period. Games come thick and fast and they're at bizarre times and it's just all over the place. If you are prepared for it, where you have a little week off, like they'll have now in the build-up to the weekend. When I say week off, they still train. But this game wasn't necessarily needed for them to burn out the legs even more. Yeah. The likes of Rashford and Sancho and Ronaldo even.
Bruno as well.
Ronaldo, he is a specimen, but maybe that midweek game is just not needed for him.
He could have got injured, you never know.
Yeah, that's true.
And the injury worries would have been there, and you would be scratching your head going, why did we waste a player on there? So there's two sides of looking at it. We gave lots of players debuts, and we also rested a first team that will need it in December.
Let's have a little look forward then, because obviously you see the title there, job done, and the job that's been done is we're through to the knockout stages. Yeah. The group is completed. We've finished top of the group, which is great to be able to say. We don't get to see that very often these days. Let's have a little look at some of the options of who United can play. So Group A, Man City finished top. United can only play a second place team anyway because we finished top, so that's how it works. And we couldn't play City anyway. Second in that group is PSG. Obviously, we can play them, right? Yeah. Second in Group B is Atletico Madrid. We can play them. We can't play an English team either. Group C is Sporting Lisbon. Group D, Inter Milan. Group E is Benfica. Then obviously Group F, we won't play anyone from that group because that's United's group. And then Group G is Salzburg. Group H is Chelsea, so we won't play anyone from that group. So our options are Salzburg, Benfica, Inter Milan, Sporting Lisbon, Atletico Madrid, and PSG. Yeah. How many of those terrify you? How many of those are you sort of, bring them on? Is there anyone you really want to avoid out of that? PSG is the obvious standout for me. I can't face another tie against PSG. Yeah, I mean, the stress and the anxiety levels of facing PSG, even though I guess looking at our track record on paper, it's not horrendous at all, but then you also have to look at who is in that PSG team at the end of the day. And I just think it's added pressure that we really don't need right now. As much as it would be very exciting, and if we won it, it would be amazing, but it's pressure that we do not need. So definitely PSG. Atletico Madrid, had a very good season last season, a very strong team that, again, don't need the stress of that, to be honest. Inter Milan maybe, obviously won Serie A last season. A good team.
not as scary as the other two, I would say. But still, there's a little bit of room there where it could go wrong.
Yeah, I think Atletico and PSG are the big two on it.
Yeah.
Obviously, PSG I think are a chunk above Atletico,
yeah.
but they are they're the reigning champions in Spain. They're a good team.
They're a great
Yeah.
team.
But
If
PSG is the one.
If it was a drama, this and someone was writing it, they would write PSG versus Man United.
Yeah, because
It's Pochettino, it's Messi versus Ronaldo. It'd be a great game. And
Yeah.
Ramos and Varane.
Oh,
yeah, and payback for 2 years ago.
So who
Yeah.
knows? I wouldn't like to see it, but maybe Sporting Lisbon, Benfica, still quite dangerous. So
Yeah.
I think the one you would want is RB Salzburg, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
Yeah.
the probably the weakest of those options. Not to say that it's a gimme by any means, but that's probably the most favourable.
And you'd like to think that Ralph would maybe know how things work
yeah.
and maybe have a little bit of
weaknesses.
inside info. Yeah.
How do you unpick that? Yeah, Alvin says PSG or Atletico or a nightmare. Salzburg or Lisbon. I think Kevin Fitz says he would like. Danny Shields with a super chat says, can we put to bed any suggestion that Jesse Lingard suits what Ralph wants? He was anonymous when given his opportunity, should have been a leader in this side. Is it fair, do you think, to say that, or do you think no one was good tonight and there are players in that team, namely Mason Greenwood or Shaw or even Wan-Bissaka, who I know maybe won't fit Rangnick's style but has been a first team player for 2 years? No one had stood out, did they? And is it unfair to sort of single out Jesse Lingard as like this was your only chance, you had to do it now?
I don't know, because I guess on one hand, as I think I said on the watch along, he's not a kid.
No.
He does have a lot of experience. So is this the type of game that you go in and you show that experience? You show what you're made of. Like I said, this is a job interview, technically. And if he wants to stay at Man United, which he didn't make the move in the summer, you'd take that as an indication that he does want to stay at the club. This is your moment to, step up and be counted. And if you can't do that in a game like this, so from that perspective, I can understand it. But then on the other side of the coin, you're playing with a team that you're not used to playing with. There's not the kind of quality on the pitch that you would normally be playing alongside. So does that have an effect on it? But I would probably agree to an extent that, this is a moment to kind of step up and be counted. And he didn't do that. As much as I did say, he was, in the mix, in attack, 1 or 2 chances. He was definitely there. But it wasn't what it could have been.
It, was it?
No,
And that's
exactly.
the thing I always think is like, maybe it's harsh to say you had 1 chance to do it. 1 chance isn't a lot, but at the same time, this was a chance, and the chance that a lot of those players probably didn't take tonight. Alessio Wallowed says, Matic, Wan-Bissaka, Mata and Fletcher, I don't know who Fletcher is there in those quote marks, are finished. On the other hand, Mengi, Greenwood and Bailly put in a shift. Van der Beek was indifferent, still need a strong CDM. And someone mentioned as well that it was Tom Heaton's debut tonight as well. So maybe we should change that title because it was 3 debuts, not just 2. Well done to Tom Heaton. I'd assumed he'd played before, but that's interesting that he hasn't played before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he ever has.
Has he
Did he
not?
ever play for us before? Did he ever play for us in the
I
past?
thought he had.
Did he get a second preview? Did he get a second debut? I'm not certain.
Maybe
Anyway,
it's a Champions League debut.
that's good that we got to see a couple of debuts. Zidane, Iqbal, potentially Tom Heaton, but certainly Charlie Savage as well. Great for those lads, isn't it? If nothing else.
Yeah,
Joe?
it is great for those lads. We just didn't get to see too much.
No,
The boys.
they were stood on the touchline for like 8 minutes, weren't they, waiting to come on, getting rained on.
Poor guys were there ready, and there was this really long passage of play where no one's put the ball out. And I bet that nerve just built up for them. But when they came on, they seemed cool. They just lost their head a bit.
Didn't get much chance to do anything, did they?
1 or 2 passes here and there, and hopefully, maybe it's something going forward that it will bring them on more and more.
Yeah. Jordan Amor with a chat, I think, which is a great way to end the video. Jesus, we had a team of players who haven't played football all season. Give them a break. I think that's the main message from this, isn't it? United won. Young Boys won. Obviously not the end of the world by any means. United through to the next round. The draw will be on Monday at 11 o'clock, so we'll be covering that here on Stretford Paddock. Thank you to everyone at home for joining us. Thank you, Ange, for coming in. Thank you, Joe, as well, for being here. It's been great having you. What a night, eh? Manchester United won, Young Boys won. It's the result we all wanted. It's done. The Champions League is done, but we'll be back, of course, all week. And then we're back at the weekend for Norwich. Will be the next watch along. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in a bit.